Mm, 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 mm. Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, this is starting to get fun. This is starting to get fun, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Fantasy Island. I know a lot of y'all don't know about that. Y'all too young to know about that Fantasy Island. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is day 5 of 100 days in a row. This is day number 5, and let's get into it. You know what I'm saying? This is welcome to CNN. I'm Kirk Kennedy. I'll be your host for the evening. Let's get it in. All right. Many of you know that Donald Trump is facing, yesterday was indicted on 34 counts. So 34 charges, if convicted, facing up to 134 years. All right. So if you're paying attention to the political landscape, this is the news, right? So first time that a president or former president has actually been indicted. Now, here's what's fascinating about this particular indictment is that the feds who indicted his lawyer, who actually, and he went to prison for this, right? For some of the crimes connected to this indictment, the feds decided they're not going to indict Donald Trump in the way that they did his lawyer. I think his name is Michael Cohen. So this is the district attorney in New York who has decided to come up with these particular charges. Now, I got to be honest with you. I think, these charges, when you actually look at them, they're really stupid. I honestly don't think. I was actually surprised at how weak these charges are, to be honest. It's so here's what it is. It's not, people are making it seem like that he's facing charges for giving hush money to Stormy Daniels. That's not exactly what that's not a crime that I'm aware of. It's definitely not a felony, right? Here what the charges are essentially that he paid back Michael Cohen, his lawyer, for giving Stormy Daniels the money, and he wrote it off allegedly as through the campaign. So essentially trying to say that Trump signed paperwork that said that the money that he was giving to his lawyer was due to campaign stuff, and it was actually due to paying off this Stormy Daniels. That's kind of what's happening. And it's upgraded to a Class E felony. Now, you're talking to someone who has had, unfortunately, some legal expertise. And not because I was a defendant and I lost, right? A Class E felony is weak. A Class E felony is it basically, okay, so I live in the DC area, in the DMV, right? And there's a couple of rich areas in our in the DMV. And there's this one area called Potomac, right? Potomac is like multi-million dollar homes, right? So me and a friend of mine were talking about this the other day. So if you live in Potomac, the zip code, you live in like, whoa, that's big money, right? So what happens is there are regular old houses and neighborhoods that say that they live in a city called like Gaithersburg or like Quince Orchard, right? But they changed the name to North Potomac because they want to have that we live in Potomac. But you don't really live in North Potomac though. You live in Quince Orchard, right? So this is essentially what's happening. These charges are they're not really felonies. These charges are really weak, if even convicted. Now, I'm not a Trump fan at all. I'm not even a political fan. I hate both sides of the political spectrum. But I have to be honest. I think these are some stupid charges, and all this has done is, pun intended, charge up Donald Trump's base. This dude raised $7 million in a day. And it probably is more than that. It's probably gone up since then for campaign. So all that's happening. Now, depending on who you ask, you will find that liberals on the left, there are people on the left that will see this as an act of justice, and conservatives see this as an act of war. All right. And by that, I mean indicting Trump. Ironically, though, even many people on the left are not buying it. Like the indictment is weak. If I'm not in the mood to show you the clips of different people who on the left who would want Trump to go to prison, who are saying, man, we looked at this indictment. This indictment is weak. They was expecting a lot more. All right. But conservatives are seeing it as an act of war. Trump called the indictment, now America's a third world country. And so here's what I want to talk about today. And again, I am a believer in Jesus Christ. So I am from the Christian tradition. And so most of what I talk about is usually two people who share the same faith that I do, trying to help them slow down because we're getting too overworked and overwhelmed by what's happening in the culture. And a lot of conservative Christians vote Republican and support and love Donald Trump for reasons I do not understand, apart from I just vote Republican. I mean, here's the thing. If the way politics work in America is pretty much like this. I just vote the same way for all my life, and I don't care who the person is. I'm a registered Republican, and that's how I'm going to vote. I totally get that. There's a difference, though, between I'm just voting Republican. If Pusty McMichaels is the Republican nominee, I'm voting for Pusty McMichaels in there. If Earl the Tooth is running, that's what I get it. If you're a lifelong Democrat and that's how you vote, that's fine. There's a difference, though, between I stand behind this particular man, regardless, irrespective of that, of what I vote for. And that's where the issue comes in. So if you listen to Trump talk and if you listen to the conservatives talk, you would think Trump is a victim, like he's a victim of the liberal left and the mainstream media and so forth. And to some degree, there is some truth to that, to some degree. But normally, if you're a victim, you're usually being wronged for no reason at all. Like normally when we think of victim, typically we think of someone who's been wronged for no reason at all, right? And here's where I take issue with my conservative brothers and sisters, not for being conservative. I'm actually more conservative myself, but for them acting like, agree this is an act of war. Like I can't believe, and getting caught up into what the Bible calls civilian affairs. No soldier gets entangled in civilian affairs. Set your mind on things above, not things that are happening that may disrupt your lifestyle in the culture, right? So you would get this impression, if you hear Donald Trump talks like, I've never done anything wrong. This is a witch hunt. I'm innocent, even though all these people around this dude who did his bidding have gotten federal charges and served prison time. They all were criminals, but he wasn't. So this is what we're going to talk about today. Here's what I want to do. I want to ask the question, how should believers think about Trump? And this is a non-political perspective, right? Non-political perspective. How should believers think about Trump, irrespective of these charges? All right. In order to understand that, I need to tell you a little story about myself. All right. There was a time I had 2 times in my life where I was facing significant legal trouble. One, I got into a shootout. I was in a shootout, or I shot at, rather, a rival gang. It was a crazy situation. Things came to a head. I pulled the gun out and I just started shooting. And we were outnumbered. It was 4 of us, and 2 of the people ran. It was just me and my man. Actually, the dude who I was with that day, this was 1997. It was me and the dude who's still my man. He's my barber. Well, he shapes me up and he cuts my kids' hair. I have another lady to do my hair. Don't hate me because I'm beautiful. I'm working on bringing the black Fabio. I'm trying. No, I'm just kidding. Nobody wants somebody without a 2, and I'm married anyway. I'm taken. But so this is my man, still my man to this day. So I pulled the gun out and I just started shooting and we ran. And after that, and they found my friend that got shot 2 weeks later. We went back. The gang came after me. I was playing basketball. The gang came after me, and I got away. I was spared my life. They were going to kill me. It was clear they were coming to kill me. I just got away. I was in much better shape then. I was like the black chariots of fire. Dun, 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 dun. I ran so fast that when I look back, they were so far gone, I stopped running. I was the black chariots of fire. Beat your chest if you know about chariots of fire. But anyway, we went back to settle the score. Shootout. My man got shot, almost died. He dropped the gun that I shot at them. The feds came, picked it up. Boom. Took the ballistics from the shooting 2 weeks prior. Who was in both accounts? Let's pick up Kurt. Now I'm facing 43 years in prison. All right. I go through that situation. The Lord had mercy on me. The judge had mercy through this judge, right? I get petty time. I was looking at 40. My lawyer told me you're going to do 10 years. I did less than 2 months. All right. No snitching. Okay. Fast forward. I get charged. I was working a job for a company called Airborne Express, and they're kind of like FedEx. And I was a new believer then, right? I was a new believer, and everyone knew I was a believer. I was kind of like a gangster who was a believer. So I was like real bold about like, yeah, I'm a Christian. You know, I was like, it was kind of funny. It was, now I look back, I'm like, man, I was y'all wilding. But back then I was new, I was a believer, but I was still a tough dude. And and there was a lot of tough dudes on that belt. And so dudes knew like, man, 504, he just goes hard. That was me, 504, right? So one day I got charged with felony theft because when your packages come down the conveyor belt, you scan them, right? And all these packages and what you do is you scan them when they're your zip code. You scan it and then you load it up on your van, and that's how you organize your van and you deliver your packages based upon how you load your van. So a whole bag came down, and normally when you do that, all of the packages are going to the same place. So I scanned it and then I threw it on the van. Well, they have these scanners that come in and randomly scan to make sure that people aren't stealing, and they scan the packages, and in the packages, in the bag, there were packages going to other places. And I was like, oh man, I ain't know that. That was my bad, bro. I just thought, I had a good reputation there. Well, they accused me of felony theft. And so I was looking at, I had just gotten off of probation. I was still on probation when this happened from the shootout. So I thought, oh man, this is crazy. I was a new believer and I was going to a new church. And when I met with the lawyer made it seem like there's a good possibility you can go to prison for this, right? They're coming to testify against you. Now I was like, I don't know what evidence they have because I ain't doing anything. But here's what I had to think through. I was a new believer. I was at a new church and I was wrestling with, this was 1999. I was wrestling with, man, the Lord may lock me up for something that I didn't do. And I was struggling with that because I didn't do this. It was clear. Everyone who knew me was like, oh, they trying to frame 504 because I was kind of outspoken. Surprised. And so they were trying to frame me. And so I was like, wow. And I remember one day I was crying out to the Lord and I just had this thought. And I think it was from the Lord. I had this thought, man, there were a lot of sins and crimes that I did. Like even the shootout, I should have got 20 plus years. That was attempted murder. I could have got 20 plus years for that. So I was like, so I got to the point where I realized, man, God, you're still sovereign. And if you let me go to prison for something I didn't do, then you're still sovereign because there were things that I did do that I didn't go to prison for and I didn't get the consequences for. And that was tough. It was tough for me to get to the point where I thought, man, even if I didn't do this, I'm not innocent though. I may be innocent of this particular charge, but I'm not a victim. I have gotten away with so many things that I should be in prison for. I mean, in all seriousness, I should have just gotten out of prison in 2018. My life would be totally different if I just spent the last 20 years in prison. I'd be institutionalized, coming out, living with my mom, hoping to find a job, right? So when I got to that point, I realized, hey, I'm not innocent, even though I didn't do this particular thing. And God is still God if he allows me to go to prison for something I didn't do. Well, by the grace of God, they dropped the charges because they ain't have nothing. They couldn't handle the truth. They ain't had nothing. So I was like, okay, sweet. Now I'm telling you all this because this is what I want my conservative brothers and sisters who think that the Democrats are taking an active war against Trump. Here's the thing. Trump is not a victim. Okay? Even if these charges are stupid, which I think many of them are, there's no way Trump's going to prison for this indictment. These charges are dumb, right? They're less serious than what I was facing, right? Trump's not going to prison. I think this is a political witch hunt. However, Trump is not a victim. And I think Christians, we need to remember that, hey, do what you do. Vote your conscience, man. Vote your conscience, right? Vote it. But you got to be careful who you support. Trump is not a victim. He may not have done that. So let me give you one verse, and then we're going to use this verse and show you what I mean. All right. Here's the verse. 1 Timothy 5:24 says this. The sins of some people are conspicuous, right? Going before them to judgment, but the sins of others appear later. All right. So the sins of some people are obvious. Conspicuous just means in the open, everybody sees it, right? Going before them to judgment, but the sins of others appear later. So think of like Ravi Zacharias. You didn't think anything. That dude was just a godly dude. Then he dies, and you hear all this stuff that he was into with massage parlors. Like his sins are revealed later, right? But there are sins of people that are conspicuous, all right? Their crimes are conspicuous. This is the verse that I want us to think through how to process Donald Trump, all right? This is non-political. If you vote conservative, Republican, vote it. Vote it. Like I told you, if Mafunk Plumpton was the nominee and then that's who you're voting for, I get it. I'm talking about be careful about thinking of Trump in such, pun intended, trumped up ways, because he's not a victim. He's not a victim. His crimes and sins are conspicuous. And prior to him being a president for the Republican side, many conservatives felt the same way. Now, I'm not going to play this clip, and if you want evidence, then tell me in the comments section, and I'll prove it. But in 2016, at the end of the Shepherd's Conference, John MacArthur was on stage with Al Mohler, himself, I think Ligon Duncan, and someone else. And someone asked the question, and John MacArthur and Al Mohler both said, and I'm paraphrasing, that it is the judgment of God that Donald Trump is running for president. This is John MacArthur, Mr. Outspoken, right? Al Mohler agreed that it is the judgment of God on America that someone with such irreparable character can actually be president. That was 2016. That's what they said. It's online. If you go on YouTube, you'll find it. You'll find it. Shepherd's Conference 2016 Q&A. You'll hear John MacArthur and Al Mohler say it. In 2020, John MacArthur said, "You're not a Christian unless you vote for Trump." Go figure, right? So in 2016, it was like, hey, but then when he gets in office and he pushes back all these things politically, it's like, hey, we actually like this guy. Even though we're supposed to care about character, we don't care about character anymore. We care about policies, what policies he's going to push. All right. So let's take a second and look at some of Trump's conspicuous sins that made John MacArthur and Al Mohler say that in 2016. Again, this is not political. I do not vote at all. This is not political. I am an equal opportunity offender of the left and the right. I think Joe Biden's one of the worst presidents in history. This dude doesn't even know where the door is after a press conference. And we're getting chumped by China, Russia, now India, and some other countries where they're going to damage the U.S. dollar because they're pulling their adopt their money away from supporting the US dollar as the world currency. That's a different video. We ain't gonna go there. I think Trump, I'd rather have Trump in office than Joe Biden from an international standpoint, because Joe Biden's a sucker. Trump would have never let balloons from China come into America without any recourse. Having said that, this dude is not a victim. Trump is not a victim. So let's not pretend that even if this indictment is stupid, he's not a victim. Like me, if he's been guilty of many things that haven't gone through. So here are a couple of the conspicuous sins of Sir Donald Trump. Undocumented Polish workers, New York City, 1980, all right? In order to construct his signature Trump Tower, the builder first had to demolish the Bonwit Teller store, an architecturally beloved Art Deco edifice. The work had to be done fast, and so managers hired 200 undocumented Polish workers to tear it down, paying them substandard wages for backbreaking work, $5 an hour, when they were paid at all right? In 1991, a federal judge found Trump and other defendants guilty of conspiring to pay union pension and welfare contributions for the workers. The decision was appealed with partial victories for both sides and ultimately settled privately in 1999. Okay? When people settle privately, I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of times, some companies will say, well, I just don't want to drag it out and go through court and all that. Yeah, that's part of it. But sometimes we're just guilty and we don't feel like going through court and having it exposed. So if you settle it quietly, you can, then if you have people sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, then you can boast, hey, we didn't do anything wrong. We weren't convicted of anything. Yeah, because you settled, fam. This is some years ago. Undocumented Polish workers, he was found guilty by a federal judge. There was some appeal and some of it was taken back, but a lot of it he settled privately. This dude is not a victim. He's not a victim. How about this? Trump University. From 2005 to 2010, this was online. In 2005, the Trump announced an university to teach his real estate development secrets. Students ponied up as much as $35,000, some after being suckered in by slick free seminars to learn how to get rich. The school shut down in 2010. In November 2016, Trump agreed to settle a series of lawsuits related to the school for $25 million. Trump did not admit any wrongdoing. I didn't do anything. Didn't admit any wrongdoing as a part of the settlement, but he had insisted for months that he would not settle the suit because he expected to win. But he ended up paying $25 million, right? So in other words, let me convince you to be a part of a school where I'm going to teach you how to be a real estate tycoon, and it was all hogwash. Flunked these folks. They didn't get their money back for a long time until eventually he had to pay $25 million in a settlement. Trump's not a victim. Trump's not a victim. So even if this indictment isn't true, he's guilty of many other crimes and sins. And when he stands before God, God is not going to be like some of the conservative Christians who are championing him as if he's being mistreated unfairly like Jesus was. Let's keep the party going. Let's keep the party going. Tenant intimidation. New York City, 1982 to 1986. In 1981, Trump scooped up a building on Central Park South, reasoning that the existing structure was a dump, but the land it was on would be a great place for luxury condos. Trump's problem was that the existing tenants were understandably and predictably unwilling to let go of their rent-controlled apartments on Central Park. Trump used every trick in the book to get them out. He tried to reverse exceptions. The previous landlords had to knock down given walls. He was threatening eviction. Tenants said the landlord had to cut off heat and water. Building management refused to make repairs. 2 tenants swore in court that mushrooms grew on their carpet from a leak. That happened to me too. That joint was crazy. Mushrooms just popped up. Back then, I'm glad I was a believer, because you could dry the mushrooms out and be high as I don't know what. All right. It says this: building management refused to make repairs. They swore the day mushrooms grew. Trump's most outlandish move was to place newspaper ads offering to house homeless New Yorkers in empty units because, as Trump wrote in The Art of the Deal, he didn't intend to fill the units with permanent residents anyway. City officials turned him down, saying the idea did not seem appropriate. Typically, Trump also sued tenants for $150 million when they complained. Trump gave in. He settled with tenants and agreed to the. This dude is ridiculous. This is ridiculous, right? So yeah, this indictment may not stick, but like let's not, come on, man. This dude is not like a reformed, born again believer who, this isn't like, oh, you're judging him for his past. No, I'm just saying there's fruit of consistent character that plays its way out. We're not even going to get into all of the allegations from beauty pageant scandals. There's a ton of those beauty pageant scandals. When you have a lot of money, it's easy for you to like settle out, and then you can always just boast like, hey, I ain't do nothing wrong, right? We're not even going to get into some of this, but I will give you this one. Breaking casino rules, all right? Here's the issue. In 1990, with Trump Taj Mahal in trouble, Trump's father, Fred, strolled in and bought 700 chips worth a total of $3.5 million. The purchase helped the casino pay the debt that was due, but because Fred Trump had no plans to gamble, the New Jersey Gaming Commission ruled that it was a loan that violated operating rules. Trump paid a $30,000 fine in the end. The loan didn't prevent a bankruptcy the following year. As noted above, New Jersey also fined Trump $200K for arranging to keep Black employees away from mafioso Robert Liboudi's gambling table. In 1991, the Casino Control Commission fined Trump's company another $450K for buying Liboudi 9 luxury cars. And in 2000, Trump was fined $250K for breaking New York state law and lobbying to prevent an Indian casino from operating in the Catskills, right? Trump admitted no wrongdoing in the New York case, but he's now out of the casino business. All right. This is all the point that I'm trying to make. This is all I'm trying to say. He's not a victim, all right? He's not a victim. Trump's not a victim. I was not a victim, even though I was falsely accused of felony theft, which they dropped the charges. I didn't do that, but I knew, you know what, Lord, I've done a lot of other things that I never had to go to prison for. I got out when I should have. So in that sense, I'm not a victim. And for my conservative, particularly my conservative brothers and sisters, listen, here's the rule. Vote your conscience, but don't lose your conscience for a vote. If you're a registered Republican, vote it. Do what you do. Do what you do. Vote your conscience, right? And then if you're a believer on the left who hates Trump and who just thinks of who would use all this history against him, you have to remember that you also have a sinful past that God has not judged you for. You may not be guilty of certain things, but you are most certainly guilty. So you have to be careful. Don't lose your conscience. Don't lose your morality over defending Trump or hating him. That's not what we do, brothers and sisters. Pray for the dude, and if the Lord sovereignly allows him to become president again, then so be it. You know, you can't, and if you're a conservative, you can't have it both ways. You can't say Trump is our guy, but as if God was sovereign when Trump got elected, but the devil somehow overthrew God. No, God was sovereign in having Joe Biden elected too. God was sovereign in having Obama elected too. God was sovereign in having George Bush elected too. God was sovereign in having Bill Clinton elected too, and then George W. Bush, and then Ronald Reagan, and then keep the party going, right? Jimmy Carter, and then Richard Nixon, and then, you know, it's God is the one who does these things. So vote your conscience, but don't lose your conscience for a vote. It's not worth it. Our kingdom is not of this world, right? It will be in the world at some point. That's not what we do, brothers and sisters. But Trump is not a victim. And I'm just tired of people acting like, oh, this is political persecution, that we can never go back now. I'm talking about conservative Christians. We can never go back now. What are you talking about, fam? There's no red and blue in eternity. And that's the stuff that's just like, Y'all are wilding to me. It makes no sense. You care more about, listen, I would love to have the country be stable, but I'm good with eternity stability. I like heaven stability more than America stability. And while you can say America first, I'm saying heaven first, eternity first. I ain't banging with none of them because they all lie, and they all, and and we're gonna get into this in a different post. But all of this stuff is corporate lobbying. Everyone pays, corporations pay lobbyists to influence politicians to pass laws that flunk you and I so that their pockets can get padded. The left and the right, they're all greedy. Greedy. So Trump is not a victim. Please stop making him a victim. But he's also not Satan. And please stop acting like he is. This dude is an evil dude who needs the Lord. Joe Biden is an evil dude who needs the Lord. And you and I are evil people outside, apart from the Lord. But what do I know? What do I know? I'm just trying to get my tooth fixed. The tooth giving y'all the truth. What do I know? Having said that, day 5, this is getting fun. I thought these were going to be like 8-minute videos. We had like 30 minutes. I talk too much. I'm like Run DMC. You talk too much. Homeboy, you never shut up. That's like, I might change the show to You Never Shut Up. Anyway, thanks for riding with me. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you tomorrow. We're going to keep the party going. Grace and peace, y'all. Appreciate you.